All right. Good morning, everybody, and happy Friday.
Happy Friday.
Welcome.
I like Friday.
Welcome
Friday's
to
fun.
the Shrink Take Live morning show. So, we here at Southeast, we've got a wonderful morning show that we're doing that's taking a look at pop culture and viewing it from a psychological perspective. So, I am Ian Murray. I'm a licensed professional counselor here at
And
Southeast.
Very handsome, I might add.
Why, thank you. It was a
Yes.
good hair day for me. And this
Yes.
wonderful gentleman and
Thank
charming gentleman
Thank you.
next to me is Dr. Frank Gaskill.
Yes, and I got a haircut just for you, Ian.
Just for me in
Yes,
this morning
I
show.
know. It's so exciting.
Sweet. So sweet. Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
All right,
Gaskill?
so people call me Dr. G. I specialize in autism and Asperger's, but I don't like those words. I say Aspie. And I like little defiant kids. I do parenting work. And I like to build Legos. Just it's the International Space Station. And I'm going to build it. I'm really excited.
Well, yeah, you don't seem excited about it at all.
No.
So I will absolutely let Dr. Gaskill talk about that a little bit more, but I want to take a moment and just introduce what we're going to talk about today.
Yes.
So we've got some really cool things to talk about. So we are going to look at the psychology of deception and cheating as we talk about and hear about the Houston Astros. We're going to talk about the new TV show Lego Masters.
Yes.
And then we are going to just give some practical psychological tips, tricks, information on the importance of play.
Yes.
Really in incorporating kids' life and their learning and development. So we want you guys to participate, ask questions, let us know. Let us know if you think Frank's Legos are cool or not. Let us know if you think his haircut looks good. We really want you guys to feel like you're involved in and you can participate in what we're talking about. So at the end of each subject, it may be a little bit forced, but I'm going to ask just and see if we have any questions. We want to make sure that we're listening and getting you guys involved in the conversation. So without any further ado...
Ooh, nice word. You're French.
I am.
Francois. That's my name. I'm Francois.
We're going to get started. So we're going to start with looking at the Houston Astros.
Yes.
And in January, so I've got a few notes here because I want to get the details of this right. So in November of 2019, the Houston Astros were featured in an article written by The Athletic. And they were talking, The Athletic published this article talking about them stealing signs. So for those who don't know, in baseball, the hitting coaches, like third base coaches, will send signs or signals. Yes, just like that. You're very good at that. Were you on the Astros?
I used to play football.
Yeah, okay. Football. Yes. One of the ball sports, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
It's a football bat.
Yeah. That's right. So what they found out is the Astros were stealing signs, which gave them a significant advantage and helped them win a World Series. So I don't necessarily want to spend too much time on the Astros, but what I want to talk to you about today is the psychology of deception, cheating. I know you have some really unique viewpoints on this, and so we'll kind of get started. I want to start out with the punishment that the Astros were given. So there wasn't really precedence for this, right? Like they were just punished, and the commissioner of baseball is just like, here, I'm going to give you the stiffest punishment I can think of. And so I'm just going to read what they gave. And so what they were given, their coach and general manager were suspended for the entire season. They were fined $5 million, and they were stripped of a first and second round pick.
Wow.
The interesting piece is there were no players that got any sort of discipline. So with that being in mind, let's talk about this idea of deception and lying.
Yes.
So, I find it really interesting that these are players who are being paid a lot of money. They're at the top of their game, right? They've got endorsement deals, but they're still looking to get an edge.
Yeah.
And when we look at lying and deception, it's fascinating why we do it. So,
just ask Lance Armstrong.
Well, yeah. So, I think it's fascinating. Talk a little bit more about that.
Well, I mean, I feel like in sport, like if you think these guys are doing it, then I'm going to do it.
Right.
And it becomes this escalation. It's like this Cold War. And you're going to do it until you get busted. But even though they got busted, they're going to still do it. because it's competition and there's big money and you want to win and you're going to do it by any cost. And if there's any, like if you look at the New England Patriots, if there's this idea that they're going to do it, then what, you're going to just sit there and do nothing.
Right.
And so for me, that comes from the commissioner. That comes from the commissioner of football and baseball and the leadership and what kind of tone and culture are you setting? $5 million fine, please.
Right.
Let's go with $100 million.
Yeah.
Let's say we are not going to do that. So that's just a slap on the wrist.
And I think it's great that you bring that up because there really is no punishment for the players involved, right?
Yeah.
And the incentive that they were working towards is a World Series championship. They still have it.
Yeah.
Right? So
of course they do.
Exactly.
With a check mark. But nobody's going to remember that.
Nobody's going to remember it. And so it's really fascinating to watch this escalation of, okay, well, I've gotten away with this, so let me push and see what I can get away with. And there's been a lot of research that's discussed not only do we do it as a protection or a benefit, but it also registers in the pleasure centers of our brain. When we lie and get away with it, it actually gives us a sense of pleasure and accomplishment. So you're talking about...
That's fascinating to me.
Yeah.
Because I think there's different kinds of lies. So like in therapy, when I work with kids, kids will lie because it's an issue of control.
Absolutely.
And so when you lie and you get away, I have not read much research, but if you lie in sport and you get away with it, and it's like, okay, that's cool.
Yeah.
Pleasure center.
Yeah.
But when it comes to attachment theory, it does not bring necessarily a sense of pleasure.
Right.
So just to kind of give a quick overview, attachment theory is like your ability to kind of connect with another person. And you've got an insecure, a secure, and an avoidant attachment. And people on the avoidant and insecure attachments will often lie for absolutely no reason. And that's that control piece. And so there are these like different categories of lying. And once you become like conscious of this and you're willing to just say, I'm going to be honest, then it requires significant vulnerability and the willingness to be like, okay, this person may not like me. This person may not like what I'm going to say. And you've got to be able to tolerate that distress.
Yeah. I think that's an excellent point. And I think that's why this topic is so fascinating, because it's not just really about the baseball. It's about like just this collective idea of why we lied, because there's no one reason as to why we lie, right? All the research, no matter how much they research it, there's no one like, okay, this is the reason. But it's fascinating to hear just different perspectives of why we might lie. And I think when you're talking about that of feeling like just the discomfort and the consequences of telling the truth, I think about this with athletes who, as they get older, you're talking about Lance Armstrong wanting to be at the top of my game, finding my identity in being an athlete and who I am. And so if I can cheat to keep that, you better believe I'm going to do it.
Well, and I'll also say there's a phenomenal interview with Lance Armstrong on Howard Stern. Yeah. And I think you could probably find it on YouTube. Yeah. If not, you can find it on SiriusXM. But to hear him, to hear the interviews with Lance before when he's like, no, I didn't take an injection in my butt. Yeah. But now, hearing him talk, it's like different. And like we lie for a lot of different reasons. Yeah. I'll give you a great example. I'm going to be honest with you.
Oh. Finally.
This is hard for me to say.
You're doing so well.
I don't like your hair today.
Okay. But I was having a good hair day.
I know you believe that, but I wanted to be fully honest with you. And I'm just tolerating the distress of the lie that I told you.
Because now I don't like you. And this is going to be a really awkward next 20 minutes.
Do you think that this scandal will affect other teams and it'll change anything?
I don't. Okay. And because there is no reason or motivation for them to change, right? Like, why would I do something differently if it benefits me and there's no consequences or reason to change? Okay. And, as you're talking about Lance Armstrong, one of the things that can cause us to lie or deceive people is mere opportunity or chance, right? So, I've been reading, there's a great article about, it's an unnamed cyclist. He didn't want to put his name out there, but he was talking about how he was very much anti performance enhancers. Well, then he got hurt. And so he started to use them to help in his recovery.
Right.
And so the opportunity presented itself. And then so he started to do things that were disingenuous and dishonest. But it escalated into this whole story where he was then selling drugs.
Wow.
Because they ran out of the supply of the steroid that they were using. So then he was importing it and giving it out. And so just that one opportunity of him being injured, and, as we're looking at this scandal, it can really lead us to lie and deceive more.
Sure.
Just get what we want and where we started. So I think it's just a really fascinating way to look at, the outrage of everyone saying, oh, don't, they're lying. They're not sorry. They're not really sorry. And it's really interesting to think, well, why would they be? Or should we apologize for things that we're not sorry for? Like, if they're not sorry, should they stand up there and say, hey, I'm really sorry?
Yeah. I find it to be a habit. Because if you habitually lie, I mean, that's just sort of what you're going to do. But if you, like, one of the things that I talk to my clients about is just take 3 beats. Just one, before you're about to answer a question, just take 3 beats and think, okay, I'm going to tell the truth. What's the worst thing that's going to happen? And then if you get into that habit of just pause, let's all be real. Ian's hair's a nightmare. Okay, that's probably not the right way to say it, and so I could think it was a better way to say it. I like what you attempted to do with your hair.
You're rewarding my effort.
And I would like to introduce you to my hairstylist because he is talented, and I find your facial features attractive.
So you're doing me a favor.
I am trying to be a friend.
I just have to listen. Well, I appreciate your honesty. So I do want to check in real quick before we transition. Is there any comments, questions?
For one, comment from me, I think you have fantastic hair, Ian.
What? Thank you.
I will not lie to you.
This coming from a guy with horrifying...
With great hair.
The guy that you can't see on screen. Yeah.
Yeah.
Don't worry, guys. I've lost that.
Yeah. You have a face for radio, buddy.
So I feel like that there are always so many, like, in sports, there's a lot of preventative things, like, to stop people from cheating. Yeah. But then once someone cheats, it's like there's not an answer to it, really. So, like, what, in this particular scenario, what's the best solution? Because they're not the only people involved. They affected every single team trying to get a title.
Right.
So what's the best, I guess, repercussion?
Yeah, no, I think that's great because there's even a story of there was a pitcher who was called up to the majors, which is really difficult to do, and they were stealing his signs, the Astros were, so he was sent down to the minors and never came back up.
Ooh.
I mean, they changed the trajectory of his professional career by cheating. So, I had written an article talking about something similar with the NFL. Is when I talk about
where's that article?
On shrinktank.com.
Oh.
That's right. One of the important things that I often find, I imagine you do the same, is when we talk with families and parents specifically, is this idea of discipline versus punishment, right?
Yes.
So punishment is you're going to fear me
yes.
so that you do what I want, and discipline is the idea of we're going to teach you something to help you develop and connect those skills, right? You're talking about taking the beats. That's a new skill
yes.
and a new connection in my brain that I'm making to make different and better decisions. And so I think baseball needs to not be reactionary. We are so reactionary in this. The punishment needs to be swift, even if it's wrong, but it's not teaching or doing anything. It's not action-oriented. It's not motivating. And so the next step is for baseball, for Rob Manfred, to take a minute and figure out, what do I want to come out of this? Do I want to get cheating out? What is the end goal? What are we trying to accomplish? What are we trying to teach? And so I think this reactionary nature is going to continue this snowball.
Sure. Yeah. I can't add anything to that.
And just one extra comment
yes.
for Frank.
Yeah.
Justin Falzone says hi.
Oh, hi. I hope you are doing well. I hope you have nice hair today as well.
Oh, all right. Well, I appreciate you tolerating my desire to talk about baseball and cheating, but we really know why you're here and what you want to talk about. Yes. So I will let you, Dr. Gaskill, introduce why we have Legos.
Yeah, well, why wouldn't we? But the broad idea would be the psychology of Legos, but essentially I want to talk a little bit about Lego Masters and the role of Legos in our lives.
Yeah.
So, Ian,
Yes.
my handsome friend,
Yes.
have you watched on Fox Monday nights at 8 p.m. Lego Masters?
So, honestly speaking, I have not.
Oh, that's honest.
But when you walked into my office yesterday, you'll be okay.
Okay.
Yeah. When you walked in my office yesterday, you said I want to talk about Lego Masters. I went home and I said, you know what? I want to see what this is all about because I like the idea. It seems really cool. So I went home and I watched it.
Oh wow!
I did. I watched
Holy smokes!
third episode.
Yes.
Yes, and it was where they cut things in half like a bike or a laptop, and then
Complete it.
yes, and then they had to complete it with Legos. And I was sitting there, and I was thinking to myself that I don't think I fully appreciate or understand how difficult this is, how hard they have worked to get here, and really how important and special it is to them. So I think that could be a good place for you to really talk, because I know you're passionate about that, and I think that was one of the things that for me, rather than just the spectacle of, like a competition show, and I didn't even know that Lego Masters existed, and that this was something that the two judges, like, that's what they do.
I know, that's their job, and they're famous.
Yeah.
I mean, to me, to me,
Yeah.
you know. But the thing about Legos, and I don't want to go too much into this because I can get run down a rabbit hole. But the spectrum, Asperger's, is this brain that is hyper wired in the frontal lobes, and you have this hyper focus, and the social world becomes less important, and you're not really good socially. But the thing about this kind of mind is you're a pattern. You can see patterns. Yes. You can recognize patterns, and that this Millennium Falcon right here. Most of the Lego Masters, meaning the people who work at Lego, are on the spectrum. Okay. And if you watch this show and you know anything about the spectrum, or like, okay, you're not, right?
Yeah.
And I don't think either of the judges are on the spectrum.
Okay.
But essentially, the way the show works, and I'll tell you the second episode, really upset me badly. Okay. But it's a competition. They're given, 13 hours to accomplish some kind of task, and then they're judged on it. And if you have the golden brick, you don't get voted off. It's kind of like Survivor, I guess, if you've seen Survivor. But okay, the second episode, they had to build spaceship stuff, space stuff. Yeah. And they were going to build these things, and they were told in advance that once they're finished, and then you would look at it and say, yeah, that's pretty, it would be destroyed. They would kill it. And they showed the various methods of destruction, including blowing it up, dropping it from a height, hitting it with a baseball bat. My hands are sweating. Literally, feel that. Are my hands sweating?
I trust you.
My hand.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Okay.
Talk about the discomfort.
You can watch those later.
Yeah. Talk about the discomfort.
But on the second episode, this couple built this it was a work of art. It was this green space monster with a giant eye, and its tentacles would move. It's really, really complicated. Yeah. And there was a tower with a little dynamite, and on top of that was the hero, which was the spaceman, right?
Yeah. Well, and I think from what I understood from the show, this is done not with directions. Like, this is...
No, there are no instructions.
And I think that's a really important piece of it, though, that they're given something with these 13 hours. And this is, not only are they creating and building it with pieces, but they are having to conceptualize, communicate this, and then build it.
And that's what's fascinating about the show to me.
Yeah.
Because, and this is what I do in group therapy. I have a good friend who uses Legos in marriage therapy. Okay. And she actually even says, you're going to build this Lego set, but you can't talk. And it's like, you get to, in terms of a marriage relationship, you get to see the nonverbals.
Yes.
Like, how are they looking at each other? Are they touching each other? Are they, like, all that kind of stuff? But in the show, you just get to see the dynamic because, and I see it in my groups. You when you're building a set like this, it has instructions.
Right.
Okay, we can do this. You got your parts finder, you got your builders, no big deal. But when you're having to imagine and create something, now you have to really communicate and talk about, okay, how are we going to do this? How do you conceptualize it? And in watching, especially like the couples or even the best friends, and man, they get pissed. Or they're like, I'm just not doing this, you're not listening to me. And that, the psychology of the show, I didn't expect.
Right.
I didn't see it coming. So that that's is sort of the role of Legos in my life. Like, I just love building them and collecting them. But in terms of sitting down and working with somebody on a piece, either instruction or if it's just two people, it's almost meditation. It's relaxation. It can create, stress, discomfort.
Sure.
But I will tell you, when that couple finished that thing,
Yes.
and they walked it up the staircase,
Yeah.
and they handed it to the host, who, by the way, is the voice of Lego Batman in the Lego movies.
It's all connected.
It's all connected.
It's all there.
He lifted that thing up. He dropped it, and it exploded into a million pieces, and I thought I was going to have a heart attack. I swear I thought I was going to die. But what was cool is when you saw the crowd of builders, I'm like, they were all freaking out, especially in the baseball bat. But when it happened, it's like, yeah! And they're like screaming and cheering and like, okay. They're tolerating that as well. But that piece will never exist again.
Right.
Not in the way that it was.
Right. And I think it's really fascinating when you talk about that. Like, I know for me and people that I talk with at times, sometimes Legos are just Legos. Like, they're just, these things that, kids love them, and the worst things to step on. But the worst. But you really use this as an incorporation like you're talking about. And so I'd be curious, you had said it's like meditation.
Yes.
Can you expand, like, what gives it meditative qualities? What gives it kind of the centering and grounding qualities?
Well, okay, so for me, I got the International Space Station, and this is a fascinating project because it was developed by a fan of Legos.
Okay.
It's not built by Lego, and it was voted on online as like, make it, and Lego said, okay, you win. But they come in these packets, and they're numbered.
Yep.
And when I sit down and I go through, this is the instruction book, and I go through, and it's like I'm sorting the pieces, I'm looking for I'm doing step by step, and it's very calming. It's sorting, it's organizing. And the thing that's different about Legos for me, and I try to get my college guys to get back into it.
Yeah.
And they thank me when they do it because what happened when I play Fortnite, I play video games.
Yeah.
But you can't hold that.
Right.
And so when you finish a set like this and you look at it, you say, well, I made that.
Yeah.
And I can hold it and I can touch it. And that's sort of a lost art. When I was growing up, I would build plastic models with glue and get high and all that kind of stuff. But then I could say, look what I did.
Right.
Video games, you can't really do it.
Right. And, as you're talking about this, like, the focus and attention that it takes, it kind of forces us to be in that present moment, right? Like, I'm imagining it's almost like at times we're losing ourselves in what we're doing in the task at hand, and we're not focused on future, we're not focused on past, we're giving it that meditative quality of I am allowing myself to be in this moment to focus on this, and then I happen to get this wonderful and great result at the end. But really being in that moment is important, and I think you've kind of talked about this as the emotional tie-in as well. Is this idea, this is forcing me to think concretely, to follow directions and steps, can help us disengage from the emotional areas of our brain and use those frontal cortexes to help us take a step back and de-escalate at times, if we need to. And I think that's an important...
Yeah. One of the things that when families... The other piece, you can't see my office, but...
it looks like this everywhere. Like, it looks like somebody just vomited.
It's a giant Lego.
Yeah.
Yeah,
so,
it's just... I have... I'm going to go with 45... Lego Star Wars sets, Ultimate Collector Series, everything. But what happens and it's fascinating. It is hard to go see a therapist.
Yeah.
It's hard.
Yeah.
And the question is, will my kid open up? Will my kid talk?
Yeah.
And in my career, which is now over 78 years.
Yeah.
I am 102 years old.
Yes, you are.
I have never in my career had a kid not talk to me.
Yeah.
And they walk into my office and they're like, "What? Are you kidding me?" And then it's like, "Okay, we're good."
Yes.
But the other piece, I usually have, I have the giant Millennium Falcon, and I'll say to the parents, we're going to work on Legos.
Yeah.
But that's not what we're really doing. Because if I sit down with a kid and say, all right, I'll be your parts finder, you build, or vice versa.
Yeah.
And we start building, I'm like, so what's going on with you?
Yeah.
And now I know we're going to talk about this in a minute, about play.
Yeah.
But with kids, and even adults, when you get kind of into a little bit of a parallel play, it distracts you enough to free you enough to talk about, let's talk about some real stuff.
Absolutely. There's this theory of work that looks at something called dual attention stimulation, and essentially we're activating both sides of the brain, the emotional right side and the logical left. And if we can give ourselves, this logical piece, and we're playing in, then it can make those emotions not as strong, right?
Yes.
And it can help me engage in ways that I might not otherwise be able to engage in. Because when we sit and talk, and I sit and look at an 8-year-old and go,
No.
tell me.
You're making me feel uncomfortable.
That's right. Tell me everything that's wrong.
Too much eye contact.
That's right. We shut down. And that can happen with adults, right? You saw Frank just shut down, right? His face gets a little bit red. Right? Now, if we were playing with Legos.
Right. Will you come over and play Legos sometime?
Well, yes, I will.
Thanks.
Yes.
Okay, thanks.
So I think this is a perfect segue. Do you want to check in for
Yeah.
any questions? So it looks like we've got a couple. So
we have two. Back over to Justin. He said that that ISS looks pretty dope, and he wants to know how big will it be once it's completed.
That is a very good question. From what I can tell, it looks like it's going to be about this big.
does it have measurements right there?
Will you read that?
With your 102-year-old
Frank
eyes.
needs more glasses.
So it looks like it's going to be about 12 by 20.
That sounds about right.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's going to be fragile. And also, just real quick, a little tidbit of information. In the Lego movie, there's the Craggle.
Okay.
That is super glue.
Okay.
Never, ever super glue Legos. You will glue your fingers together, and you will not get your fingers apart, and you will bleed. Legos are glued together with acetone, which is women's, not women's, I mean, I'm wearing nail polish too, but it's nail polish remover.
Okay.
And what you do is you have a bowl with nail polish remover in it, and you take one Lego piece and you just dip it and stick it.
Okay.
Here's the thing. Once you put that thing together, it will never, ever, ever come apart because the acetone breaks the chemical bonds of plastic. And when you put it together, it reseals them and becomes a solid piece of plastic. That's what you see in the Lego store. Those are solid.
Yeah.
Problem is, if you drop it, it'll break, but not apart. It'll just break, like snap a piece of plastic, and you're done.
Yeah.
So.
Okay.
And then, so thank you for that. And the second question is from Teddy Stang on Facebook. Says, my daughter has loved Legos for 14 years. What can she do besides building by the book? Are there any other opportunities possibly around town?
Yes. That's a great question. So there are a couple things.
Nobody better than this guy to
is the best
answer. It's Friday night. You've got something like that tonight, don't you?
I gotta go now. The Lego store has lots of fun projects. And you can get in touch with them. They have different programs. But there's another piece of this that's more psychological. Have you seen the Lego movie?
I've not seen the Lego
After
movie.
this show, I'm going to take you out there and I'm going to beat the crap out of you. Stupid athlete. Okay.
Thank you for being honest, Frank.
Thank you. Okay, I'm sorry. You're not stupid. You're mildly challenged. In the Lego movie, there's this dilemma between people who build the set and leave it alone versus free builders. Free builders are what Lego Masters is about. They are just free builders.
Right.
I'm Lord Business. If I build a set, don't you dare touch it. And if it falls apart, I will fix it. And don't you touch it. And what I did to do free building, I went on eBay and I bought lots, and not meaning a whole lot, but like a lot of Legos.
Okay.
And you can buy 15, I probably have 50,000 Lego pieces.
Yeah.
And you can get them pretty cheap. But the question for Teddy Stang would be having somebody kind of teach how do you free build. And that's what Lego can do. But I'll also add this. There are a lot of really cool websites that I've gone to where you can print out custom and unusual Lego sets, and you can go through your big piles of sets and try and like find the right pieces, or you can go to the Lego store and pick out the pieces that you need. But it's just kind of being about creative. I'll also tell you this: there's this really fun task. So you can get like let's say a group of 5 or 6 boys and girls, and you go to the Lego store and you pick out 10 yellow bricks of various sizes, 5 white bricks, 3 black, and a few orange. And you make sure they're all the same, and you put them in a little bag. And you put them in front of each kid, and you say, build me a duck.
Okay.
That's all you do. And so they're like, how? You say, I don't know. Build me a duck.
Yeah.
And so they start working, and they have, say, 15 minutes to build a duck. At the end, you then say, tell me how you made your duck and what were you thinking?
Yeah.
And then they get to tell a story about their duck. And they're all different.
Right.
And some can be really unusual. Some can be really straightforward. But that's another... And there's also a lot of curriculums online that you can find that can teach you how to use Legos. Yeah. Or actually, I'm sorry, the word is Lego.
Lego.
It's not Legos.
So
the S is not. It does not exist. It's only Lego.
Okay, so somebody saying Legos would not bother you.
It bothers me.
Oh, okay. Well, I think that's a really good segue into what we wanted to just end our show here with is the use of play as a medium and mode for kids being able to learn, explore, introspect, build resiliency. And so I think hearing you talking about Legos and how important, they've been to you, but also your work. I think, I gave a talk to a local school yesterday talking about resiliency and talking about the importance of play and how kids communicate through play before they can verbally express what's going on. And your story about having kids come in and look at your office and like all of their defenses just are like out the window, gone. And I think it's really interesting. I'd love to hear a little bit more about it. Like this idea that you're meeting the kid where they're at, right? Therapy, psychology, like treatment, diagnosis, that's all really adult words. Right. And when we try and put those big adult ideas and words and concepts on kids, it can really cause them to shut down. And by using Legos, by using things and teaching things and meeting them where they're able to communicate has been really beneficial to you. And I think that's really important. And I think as we've just gotten there's been more expectations, there's less time for play. We've just lost that.
Yes.
Aspect.
I do not believe in homework.
Yeah.
I don't think kids should have homework. If you're in school for 8 hours, I mean, we don't expect it's just completely unacceptable, and kids have lost the art of play. And that's one of the things that I asked my parents to do. There's a store here in North Carolina, I think it's a national store, called Michael's. And I said, you want to play Fortnite, you're going to play a video game. Okay, great. Now you're going to learn how to needlepoint, which I know how to.
Yeah, sure, because you told us you play Fortnite, so both those go together.
I know how to crochet and cross stitch.
That sweater vest you got on is
it's my.
That's a Gaskill original.
Yes, this is my anti-woman device.
Repellent.
Yes, it's woman repellent. But play and also I'd say play is there's a game that I play before all of my groups.
Yeah.
And I lay out these letters. You remember, like from preschool, they're the little, wooden letters.
Yeah.
Sometimes they're
Yeah.
magnets.
Yeah.
And I put all the letters out, and I say, okay, we'll do this real quick. Ian.
Yeah.
We're going to go through A through Z.
Okay.
And the topic is animals.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I'll start. A, aardvark. B,
Bear.
cat.
Dog.
Elephant.
Frog.
Frog. Is that an animal though?
Gorilla.
Gorilla. A hound.
Oh, okay. Iguana. Yeah,
Kangaroo.
but you get the idea.
Yeah.
And what play does, it kind of loosens you up, but it also activates certain centers of your brain that allows it to grow and
Yep.
develop and builds an attachment, a connection with another
Yes.
person.
Yes, and I think that's such an important piece. So, I use Legos a bit differently. I work with some younger kids, they're
Yes.
5 and 6, and sometimes, understandably, so people ask me like, you just let them play, like you just, and my answer is absolutely, because when they are able to play, and it's not that I just sit there and watch them. I am also participating in a way that's first ask permission. And,
Yes.
you're welcome. And it's amazing to watch kids as they get more comfortable in play, how they'll be willing to invite and create that connection. But one of the things that I use is this idea of tracking, where I am following what they're doing and like mirroring it to them. So,
Yes.
for example, if a kid's playing and he's trying to just build some Legos and it keeps breaking, I might say something like, wow, that Lego keeps breaking, but you're going to continue to try and get it just the way you want it.
Yes.
Then once it's done, it may say something like, wow, it really was difficult, but you knew exactly what you wanted to do and you knew exactly how to get there.
Growth mindset.
Absolutely. And it integrates the experience of play with now this sense of ability and resilience, and now I have this sense of accomplishment. And, I've had kids come back after, 5 or 6 sessions, and they're starting to use this language where now
That's
it's like,
cool.
I know exactly, like I can't find the piece, but I know I'm going to find the piece.
Wow.
And it's amazing to watch just through play, them be able to explore and begin to understand themselves and their experiences, and that we don't have to teach like confidence and self-confidence through like through learning or through school or even through sports. Like it can just be this sense of control where I am in a room and I have this perceived sense of control. Because you mentioned the word control a couple times, and that's huge for kids. And in play, that's where they have it.
Yes.
Right?
That's right. That's cool.
Yeah. Well, I can tell you're done.
No, I mean, I'd like us to play more.
Yeah, let's
Yeah.
do that. I can tell you're dying. See it on your face.
Maybe you'll like observe me and I'll play, and you can
track what you do.
You can track what I'm doing and tell me I'm doing a good job, and then say,
That's the
"Look,
next live show.
Yeah.
we play with Frank.
yeah,
That's right.
Am I doing good,
Am I
Daddy?"
doing- So it looks like I don't think we have any questions for that. So,
Okay.
well, this was awesome. I really
different.
enjoyed it. But I think it's unique, and I think it's things that often get passed over
Yes.
and that we're really separate from adults, right? We as
Yes.
adults, we separate plays. This is a child's thing. This is not something that we do. And, so I think it's really important, and it's great to hear you talk about it.
I also
as
want to
well.
recommend something. It's getting ready to come out.
Yeah.
On basically all consoles, but I prefer Xbox One. I play the Lego games, and I highly recommend Lego games because it teaches problem solving.
Yeah.
And in the 2-player version, it requires cooperation because you're not going to get through this level until your buddy does it. But there's a new Lego game. It's Star Wars Legos, but it's all 9 movies in one game. I'm never gonna leave my house.
I was gonna say you're gonna be out of work for what, 2 weeks? Like that.
At least
It's
all 9 movies in one game.
Yeah.
What is going on?
gonna be a sabbatical. So as Frank enters his sabbatical,
Yes.
his Lego sabbatical,
Yes.
we want to thank you for joining us this
Thank you.
morning. You can find us on YouTube, YouTube /Shrink Tank. Be able to watch us, follow us, share. Please let us know if there's any topics that you'd like covered. There are new people on each week, and we really value that. There's different perspectives, different interests. So thank you for spending your Friday morning with us. And Dr. Gaskill.
Thank you. And follow me on Twitter at drfgaskill. Because I often post Lego information there that is very important for you to...
Top secret.
It's not. It is, yes. All of it, yes. Words. Just words. But thank you. You're an excellent host, Ian. I'm impressed. You have... I don't believe all the bad things people say about you. I just want you to know that. I mean, I believe some, but not all of them.
That's all I can
You're a
ask
great
for.
host. Thank you. Thank you, Ian.